The snow was falling so softly that night you might have mistaken it for something gentle if you didn't know what was waiting behind my father's front door. I remember standing on the Dawson porch, with my 7-year-old daughter's hand inside my glove, her tiny fingers curled with hope. She whispered, "Mommy." Will Grandpa like my drawing this time? And my heart twisted because children always believe in magic a little longer than the world deserves. Inside, I could hear laughter, silverware, clinking glasses, Bing Crosby crooning something warm and nostalgic. 47 gifts were stacked under the 12-foot tree, shiny boxes, velvet ribbons, tags written in my father's bold handwriting. Everyone else's kids would leave tonight clutching something brand new. My daughter would leave with whatever scraps of dignity she could keep. We stepped inside without knocking. That was the rule on Christmas Eve, even though every part of this house had taught me I was never really welcome. Warmth hit our faces. Perfume, wine, pine. Conversations floating like bubbles. Savannah, the picture-perfect golden child, glided across the foyer, kissing cheeks, laughing too loudly, always exactly how my parents liked her to be. My mother walked past us carrying a tray of dessert forks. She glanced at Mia for half a second, smiled just enough to stay polite, and then looked away as if my daughter were a smudge on the table she'd polish later. I should have turned around right then. I should have walked my sweet girl back into the quiet safety of the snow. But Christmas does something strange to people who've been raised inside family drama. It makes you think maybe this time will be different. Maybe tonight they will remember they love you. They didn't. My father stood at the center of the great room wearing his deep green holiday sweater sleeves rolled to the elbow the way he did when he was ready to perform. The massive tree glowed behind him. Children squealed at his feet. His voice boomed through the house, full, rich, commanding, because Charles Dawson loved an audience more than he loved any member of his bloodline. "Who's ready for presents?" he shouted. The kids screamed, cameras flashed, wine glasses tilted. He dug into the giant velvet sack as if he were Santa himself. A science kit for Noah's boy. A dollhouse set for Harper. A drone for Cody, gift after gift. Name after name, cheers, photos, laughter. 47 boxes shrinking to 46, then to 40, then to 33. Mia's hand tightened around mine. Her eyes shone not with greed, but with that quiet, desperate hope. Only neglected children carry hope that this time she would not be forgotten. My father reached into the bag again, pulled out a silver-wrapped box, the last one. A hush fell, the kind that makes your pulse echo in your ears. His gaze swept the room, slow and deliberate. Then it landed on my daughter. Something cold flashed behind his eyes, something he didn't bother to hide. He raised the box. "This one," he said, the room leaning in, "is not for her." Mia went still. He straightened, voice hardening so every adult could hear him loud and clear. "Only good kids get presents. She's not worthy. That's your bastard child." The room ruptured in a silence so violent it felt like glass breaking inside my chest. Somewhere behind me, someone gasped. Someone else muttered a prayer. A child at my feet stopped chewing a cookie and stared. But all I saw was Mia's face. She tried not to cry. Her lips pressed together, her shoulders shook. She swallowed a sob that was too big for her small body, and then the tears spilled anyway. I knelt down, holding her cheeks in my hands. Her breath hitched. "Mommy." "I was good," she whispered. "I really was." My throat burned. Every humiliation my father had ever carved into me snapped like a fragile bone. Not because of what he called me, but because he dared to wound my child. I stood up, lifting my chin. "We're leaving," I said, my voice steady as stone. My father scoffed. "There she goes, dramatic as always." Savannah looked anywhere but at me. My mother busied herself rearranging spoons she'd already arranged 3 times. No one stood up for us. Not one adult told my father he'd crossed the line. That was the Dawson family way: turn your head, sip your wine, and pretend cruelty is tradition. I took Mia's coat, draped it over her shoulders, and walked toward the door. At the threshold, I paused just long enough to let the entire room hear it. Goodbye. No one followed. Outside, the cold wrapped around us like something honest. The snow fell thicker. Mia sobbed into my coat. I don't understand. Did I do something wrong? No, baby, I whispered, kissing the top of her head. You did nothing wrong. I buckled her into the car, cranked the heat, and watched her small hands cling to the stuffed bear she brought everywhere. Behind us, the Dawson house glowed with warm lights, perfect decorations, and a family that cared more about looking loving than being loving. I sat behind the wheel hands, gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles ached. The humiliation, the betrayal, the injustice, the 7 years I'd spent trying to give Mia a family she deserved. And then there was something else. Resolve. A quiet, sharp click inside my body, the sound of a door locking shut forever. No more begging for their kindness. No more offering pieces of myself just so they could spit on them. No more letting my daughter believe she had to earn worthiness. I reached for my phone with fingers that no longer shook. My project manager answered on the second ring. Riley, everything okay? The snow swirled past the windshield like white embers. I need you to cancel the Redwood Falls renovation, I said. The entire $3.2 million project. A pause. Are you sure it starts next month? Cancel it, I repeated. Tonight. He exhaled. I'll send a supervisor. I hung up, letting the weight settle over me, not regret, but clarity. For years, I kept giving to a family that took everything and returned nothing. Tonight, I would stop the bleeding. 15 minutes later, headlights lit the driveway. My supervisor stepped out carrying the cancellation documents. Ready? He asked. Mia slept softly behind me. I touched her cheek before stepping back into the house I swore I'd never enter again. Conversations ceased the moment I pushed open the door. My father stood stiffly, my mother frozen beside him. Savannah's smile vanished. My supervisor spoke professionally, but the words hit like a hammer. We're here to confirm cancellation of the Dawson estate renovation contract, valued at approximately $3.2 million. Ms. Harper, do you formally withdraw? I held my father's gaze. Yes, I do. The clipboard snapped shut. The room shattered into whispers, shock, embarrassment, panic. For people obsessed with reputation, humiliation was the deepest cut. I walked back into the night, into the falling snow, into the only world that still felt honest, my daughter's world. Inside the car, Mia stirred. Are we going home now, Mommy? Yes, sweetheart, I whispered. We're going home. As I drove away, the Dawson lights blurred in my rearview mirror. The road dipped into darkness. The storm thickened, but my chest felt strangely light, as if shedding the chains of a lifetime. Mia fell asleep again, her tiny face lit by dashboard glow. Her eyelashes still held the residue of tears. I memorized her breath, the softness of her cheek, the way she always curled inward like she was trying to protect her own heart. I thought of the years I'd struggled alone after leaving this town at 18. The jobs that barely paid rent, the cheap apartments, the nights I held newborn Mia and promised her I would build a life worthy of her. And I had. Everline Homes wasn't just a business. It was proof I had climbed out of the ashes they left me in. I should have felt triumphant tonight. Instead, something else tugged at me, a memory like a bruise pressed too hard. My father once said to me back when I was 17, and naive enough to believe he could love me, "Strength isn't in what you build, Riley. It's in what you're willing to destroy." For the first time, I finally understood what he meant. Some things needed to be torn down. Some families needed to fall apart. Some bloodlines needed to be cut so the next generation never bled the way you did. By the time I reached my house, the storm was a full white curtain. I carried Mia inside. Her arms clung around my neck. I laid her gently in her bed, pulled the blanket to her chin, and watched her breathing settle. In the dim living room, our small Christmas tree blinked with mismatched lights and cheap ornaments. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't perfect. But it was ours. I sat on the couch, snow muffling the world outside, and let the truth wash over me. Tonight wasn't just a humiliation. It was a beginning. A fracture line through the Dawson empire. A warning shot to anyone who thought I would stay silent forever. They called my daughter unworthy. They called her a bastard. They called her nothing. Now they were about to learn what nothing could rise into when a mother decided her child would never kneel again. And as the storm raged outside, I whispered the truth aloud for the first time in years. I'm done being your shadow. The wind howled back in answer, like the world itself agreed. And everything was about to break open. The storm had turned the highway into a white tunnel by the time we left Redwood Falls far behind, and yet the deeper darkness settling inside me wasn't from the weather. It was from watching my daughter crumble under a man who had once sworn he loved me. The humiliation replayed in my mind like a broken reel, my father's voice, the stunned faces, the room full of adults pretending cruelty was tradition. But now, with Mia breathing softly in the back seat, I realized something else. This wasn't the first time he had tried to break me. It was just the first time he had aimed at my child. When we reached home, the house felt smaller than usual, as if the storm outside was pressing against the walls. I carried Mia in, laid her on the couch, and wiped the tear streaks from her cheeks. She didn't wake. Children often collapse after heartbreak. They sleep as if their bodies need to forget before their minds can. I set a blanket over her and sank into the armchair across from her, my pulse still racing. The room was quiet except for the heater humming and the faint ticking of the clock above the kitchen doorway. I didn't know how long I sat there before my phone buzzed again. A message from an unknown number. It's everywhere. I frowned and typed back, "Who is this?" A moment later, another message appeared. "Check Facebook. Check the parents group." My stomach dropped. I opened the browser, clicked into the Redwood Falls Parents Circle, and the first post hit me like an open palm. A video of my father calling Mia a bastard child, posted anonymously. 10,000 views in 1 hour. The comments spun wildly, shock, anger, disbelief, and then those quieter voices that always appeared in moments like these, people who whispered behind screens what they would never say to your face. That poor little girl. Is this real, someone call CPS? Typical Dawson. Always about image. I closed my eyes, letting my phone rest against my thigh. My heart wasn't hurting for myself anymore. It was for Mia. For the fact that her pain had become spectacle, that strangers now knew her tears before she even opened her eyes again. A soft knock sounded at the door. My heart jolted, but when I looked through the peephole, I saw a familiar face. Landon, my brother, the one person from that house who had never fully belonged there. He stepped inside without speaking, shaking the snow from his coat. For a moment, we just looked at each other. My eyes were swollen. His were exhausted, as if he hadn't slept in months. "I saw the video," he said quietly. "Everyone has," I whispered. He nodded, jaw tightening. "I didn't know they would do that. I didn't know it would get that far, Riley. I didn't know how to respond." For years, Landon had lived halfway between us, close enough to witness the cruelty, far enough to avoid drowning in it. I didn't blame him, not really. But tonight I was too tired to comfort anyone. "They didn't just do it to me," I said finally. "They did it to Mia." His eyes flicked to the couch where Mia slept, curled into a ball. I saw something flash across his face, grief, guilt, maybe even anger. Then he whispered, "You know he's panicking, right, Dad, about the renovation." I folded my arms tightly. "He'll survive." Landon hesitated. "Maybe not." I frowned. "What does that mean?" He swallowed hard. "It means he needed that project, more than he let on." A cold ripple ran down my spine. "Is he in trouble?" Landon dragged a hand through his hair, pacing a few steps before stopping again. "I shouldn't tell you this. But yes, the Dawson estate isn't doing well. Dad's been hiding it. There were bad investments, business deals that fell apart, loans he shouldn't have taken. He was counting on that renovation contract to cover a few things." I stared at him, stunned. My father, the man who bragged endlessly about his wealth, was drowning and canceling the project. Landon continued. It isn't just embarrassing him. It's exposing him. I exhaled slowly. Good. Landon flinched at the coldness in my voice, but I didn't soften it. Not tonight. He walked to the window, cleared a circle in the foggy glass, and stared out into the storm. There's something else, he murmured. About Savannah. I closed my eyes. Of course there was. She posted a statement, he said reluctantly. On her Instagram. She said you overreacted and that Dad was joking. She also said Mia has behavioral challenges. My breath caught. She did what Landon winced. She's trying to protect the family, but some people aren't buying it. The comments are turning hard. I sat down slowly, the room tilting. Savannah had always been my mother's favorite mirror, pretty controlled, obedient. She learned early that loyalty meant lying convincingly enough to keep the family image intact. She threw my daughter under a bus, I whispered. Landon didn't deny it. A beat passed, the heater clicked, the house settled, the storm outside pushed harder against the windows. Why are you here, Lon? I asked softly. He turned, and for the first time in years, I saw the boy he used to be, the one who hid with me in the treehouse. After Dad yelled, the one who slipped cookies under my door when I cried after arguments, the one who always knew we didn't belong in that house the same way Savannah did. Because I can't do what they do, he whispered. Not anymore. And because you deserve to know the truth about him. About all of them. I waited. He reached into his coat and pulled out a small silver flash drive. My stomach tightened. What's that? Everything he said. Call logs, conversations, things they've said about you, about Mia, stuff Mom told her friends, stuff Dad told business partners, things Savannah said when they thought no one was listening. I stared at the tiny object in his hand, feeling its weight even from across the room. Why did you record them? I asked quietly. His jaw clenched. Because I knew someday you'd need proof, and because I was tired of watching them rewrite history. A tremor spread through my chest. Landon? You didn't have to, I did, he cut in, voice cracking. You've been their scapegoat since you were 15, Riley. They blamed you for everything. They punished you for existing. And when you had Mia, they tried to erase you. I swallowed hard. Why didn't you leave with me? He gave a small broken laugh. Because I was a coward. And because I thought if I stayed, maybe I could soften the damage they did. But I failed. No, I said firmly. You didn't fail. He looked away, blinking fast. The flash drive glinted under the kitchen light, sharp and metallic like a key that opened every locked, hidden room of my childhood. I also brought something else, he murmured. A backpack. My heart lurched. Mia's, he nodded. She left it by the coat rack. I didn't want Mom to touch it. He retrieved it from near the door, holding it gently as if it were fragile. I took it with trembling hands. Inside was her tablet, her homework folder, a drawing she'd made of our family, me, Mia, and a son above us. There was no grandpa in it. No grandma, no aunt, no uncle, no cousins, just us. I pressed the picture to my chest. A shift happened in that moment, not loud or dramatic, but deep, a fault line shifting under the earth. I realized I didn't want revenge for myself anymore. I wanted freedom for Mia. I wanted a life where her drawings didn't include blank space where love was supposed to be. Landon sat beside me. Neither of us spoke for a long time. Finally, he whispered, "There's one more thing you should know. Dad is calling a meeting tomorrow morning. He wants the family to reclaim the narrative. He plans to tell the town you've always been unstable." My jaw tightened. He would. And he's telling people you canceled the renovation out of spite, Landon added. He wants to turn the community against you. I laughed softly, a tired, humorless sound. He doesn't realize the community saw everything. He will double down, Landon warned. That's who he is. Oh, I know. I turned toward him, voice low and controlled. But he doesn't know who I am anymore. Landon stared at me, and something like awe flickered across his expression. "You're not backing down, are you?" "No," I said. "Not this time." He nodded, almost relieved. "Then I'm with you." We sat together until the storm quieted. After he left, I checked on Mia again. She was still sleeping, curled softly on her side, her arm resting on her bear. I brushed her hair back and whispered a promise against her forehead. "You will never feel unworthy again. Not while I'm breathing." When I stepped back into the living room, the house felt different, still small, still imperfect, still filled with the ache of what happened tonight. But there was a new weight inside me, a new clarity, a new kind of strength. My father had humiliated my daughter. My sister had lied about her. My mother had ignored her tears. And the town was watching everything unravel. But this time I wasn't the girl begging them to love me. I was the woman willing to burn the whole facade down. I plugged in the flash drive. The files opened one by one, and I saw exactly how this war began. I clicked the first audio file on the flash drive, and at once my mother's voice filled the quiet of my living room. Cold, controlled, familiar in the worst way. "I don't know why Riley keeps trying," she said, as if discussing the weather. "She wants pity. She always has. And that child, well, that's the consequence of her choices." I froze. The recording had a faint clinking of dishes in the background, the chatter of women at a brunch table. My mother sounded calm, no shame, no hesitation, just the polished tone she used when she wanted others to agree with her cruelty. My cheeks burned. I pressed play on the next file. My father's voice sharper, laced with irritation. "Mia is wild, unpredictable. These kids from broken situations rarely turn out right. Riley is trying to force us into pretending everything is normal." A man laughed in the background. "So why don't you just tell her no, my father?" "Because she'll make a scene. She always does. Best to give her nothing and wait until she stops asking." I closed the laptop, my breath shaking. These weren't stray comments. They were patterns, sentences carved from belief spoken with the casual confidence of people who never expected consequences. They didn't just dislike me. They wanted to erase me. And they wanted to erase Mia even more. I stood and paced, chest tight. Every memory of being ignored, blamed, humiliated suddenly made perfect sense. They weren't reacting, they were rehearsed. My phone buzzed. A text from a number I hadn't saved but recognized instantly. "Savannah. You need to stop. Dad is furious. You humiliated him tonight. Delete that cancellation, apologize, and we can figure this out as a family." I laughed under my breath. Of course she wanted things fixed. Of course she wanted me compliant. Dawson daughters were supposed to fall in line. I typed back one word: no. 3 dots blinked. Then her reply came: "You're being emotional again." Think about Mia. Do you really want her growing up without family? I stared at the message so long the letters blurred. The hypocrisy was a wound. Growing up without family, she already was. A new recording auto-played when my laptop woke again. My father sounding irritated. "Why does Riley keep that job anyway? Construction. Really, she thinks being independent makes her special. She doesn't understand loyalty. She doesn't even understand gratitude." Landon's voice was faint in the background, softer, weary. "She works hard. She takes care of Mia. Maybe just be nicer to her." My father scoffed. "That girl has been nothing but trouble since she was born." The room tilted. I pressed pause. My chest constricted tighter and tighter until I had to sit down. Trouble since I was born. It was one thing to suspect it, another to hear it spoken out loud. I didn't realize I was crying until a tear dropped onto my wrist. Mia's small voice carried from the hallway. "Mommy." I wiped my tears quickly and turned. She stood there in her pajamas, eyes still swollen from earlier. She walked to me slowly and crawled into my lap. "Mommy, did Grandpa hate me?" I felt something inside me shatter cleanly. "No, baby," I whispered, kissing the top of her head. "He hates things he doesn't understand." and he doesn't understand you." She nodded against my chest, though I knew she didn't truly understand. How could she? She was 7. She just wanted family. She just wanted belonging. "We belong together," I said softly. "That's enough." Her fingers curled into my shirt. "Are you sad?" "Yes," I whispered, "but not because of you." She nodded sleepily, settling into my arms, and within moments she drifted off again. I carried her to her room, tucked her under the blankets, and stayed there until her breathing deepened. When I returned to the living room, the laptop screen glowed with another recording already queued. This one had a different tone. "My father, I can handle Riley. She'll break eventually. My mother, she already has. She just doesn't know it. My father, good, the girl needs to learn that she's nothing without us." A cold wave rolled through my body. Nothing without us. I sat back slowly, every muscle trembling with a clarity I hadn't had before. Their cruelty toward Mia wasn't an accident. Their cruelty toward me wasn't random. It was control, a system, a belief. My phone buzzed again, this time a call. James, my cousin, one of the few who ever showed me real kindness growing up. I answered on the second ring. "Riley, have you checked Facebook? I saw the video," I said. "No," he said quickly. "Not that. Something else." My heart stuttered. "What happened?" "Your dad had a meeting at the country club tonight, after you left. A lot of people were there. Some of them recorded him." "Recorded him?" What? James hesitated. "What did he do?" I pressed, voice tightening. "He said Mia ruined Christmas. Said you embarrassed him on purpose. Said you're unstable and need help." My breath caught. "He also said—" James paused, then cursed under his breath. "He said you're dangerous, that the town needs to protect itself from you." A cold tremor ran through my body. "He what?" He's trying to flip the narrative. James's voice was urgent now. "A lot of people didn't buy it, but some did. And the video is spreading. The comments are bad." I sank onto the edge of the couch. "He's lying," I whispered. "I know," James said. "But you need to be ready. He's going to escalate. He always escalates when he feels cornered." A slow, bitter understanding descended on me. My father wasn't just angry. He was retaliating. "Riley," James said gently, "you need support. You need someone to stand with you." I closed my eyes, letting the weight of everything settle. "I have Mia." "You need more than a child," James insisted. "You need allies, people who see the truth." "I have you," I said quietly. He hesitated. Then his voice broke. "Yeah, you do." For a moment, neither of us spoke. The storm pressed hard against the windows, whistling like it wanted in. Riley, James finally said, "Listen." "Dad said something else." My stomach tightened. "He said he's going to correct your behavior. That he won't let you embarrass the Dawson name anymore." I exhaled slowly, steadying myself. "So he's preparing an attack?" "Yes." "Let him," I whispered. James was silent. "What does that mean?" "It means I'm done hiding," I said. "And I'm done apologizing." Another knock sounded at my door. James heard it through the phone. "Who is that?" "It's almost midnight." "I don't know," I whispered. "Don't open it if you're alone." "I'm not alone," I said softly. "Mia's here, and I'm done being afraid." I hung up. The knock came again, softer this time. I approached the door, staying behind it as I peered through the peephole. Not my father, not my mother, not Savannah. A woman stood there, wrapped in a heavy wool coat, her hair white as snow. Her posture was stiff, as if she had stood in storms like this before. We stared at each other through the glass. Then she mouthed one word: "Evelyn." My breath caught. My grandmother's name. I unlatched the door slowly, heart pounding. The woman didn't smile, didn't force warmth. She simply extended a small leather-bound notebook toward me, her gloved hand trembling. "You don't know me," she said. "But I knew your grandmother, and she wanted you to have this." The world seemed to tilt. The storm raged behind her. Mia slept down the hall, And in that moment I felt something shift again, another fracture, another piece falling into place in the puzzle I had never understood. My father wasn't just cruel, he was hiding something my grandmother had suspected long before I did. I swallowed hard voice, barely more than a whisper. Come inside. Because the night wasn't ending. It was beginning. Under the yellow glow of my kitchen pendant light, the leather-bound notebook lay between the woman and me like an unanswered question. The storm outside rattled the windows, wind pushing against the glass as if trying to listen in. The woman who had introduced herself only as Evelyn Hart sat with her hands folded neatly over one another posture, straight eyes sharper than her age should have allowed. I finally asked the question that had been clawing at my throat since she arrived. How did you know my grandmother Evelyn blinked slowly, as though choosing her answer with surgical precision? I didn't know her as well as I knew your grandfather, she said. But I knew enough. Enough to know you were going to need this notebook one day. The air shifted around us. My grandfather. I repeated the word, feeling foreign on my tongue. Her gaze flicked upward to mine. Yes. Everett Dawson. A chill crawled down my spine. My father's father. The man whose portrait still hung above their fireplace. The man my father idolized like a saint. The man who died when I was 9 under circumstances I barely remembered. What does he have to do with any of this? Evelyn pressed her lips together. Everything. She nudged the notebook closer, signaling me to open it. My fingers trembled as I did. The leather creaked softly, and the first page revealed tight, slanted handwriting, practiced deliberate, unmistakably masculine. Everett Dawson's handwriting. My breath stilled. Date after date filled the page records notes names of people I didn't recognize, amounts of money I couldn't ignore, and then highlighted in a darker stroke as if Everett himself wanted it not to be missed, Riley. If you are reading this, then Robert has repeated my mistakes. My throat tightened painfully. I kept reading. I loved my son. But I feared what he became after watching me hide too many truths. Secrets breed cruelty. Silence breeds monsters. If he is hurting you, the fault is mine. The room tilted. I held the edge of the counter to steady myself. What is this? I whispered. Evelyn's voice softened in a way that felt almost like grief. Your grandfather came to me before he died. He'd been keeping records, financial, personal, legal. Things he never wanted your father to inherit. Why not? Because Everett knew that giving power to a man who worshipped image instead of integrity was a dangerous thing. My heartbeat thudded loud in my ears. I flipped through more pages. Hidden bank accounts, notes about money missing from the Dawson Family Foundation, handwritten confessions of the pressure he put on my grandmother, apologies he never gave her in person. Then I turned the page and froze. My name, written in bold strokes. Riley is not to be controlled by them. Protect her. The letters swam in my vision. He wrote this, I whispered. Yes. Why didn't anyone tell me? Because your parents burned the first copy, Evelyn said flatly. They didn't know a second one existed. My pulse stumbled. I sank onto a chair notebook still open in my lap. Why bring this now? Why after all these years? Her answer came without hesitation, because tonight the Dawson facade finally cracked enough for light to get through. Silence stretched between us, thick and electric. Evelyn reached into her coat pocket and produced a small flash drive. She placed it gently on the table. Everett suspected financial misconduct in the foundation. He believed Robert would repeat his sins. We kept a few files in case the day came when someone needed to stop him. I stared at it. What kind of files? The kind your father doesn't want the world to see. Her voice remained calm, almost clinical. The kind that explained why he was so desperate to keep you in line. My stomach flipped. And Mia, I whispered. Evelyn's expression softened in the faintest, rarest way. Children like Mia, strong, bright, Unwanted by the ones who fear them always reveal what a family truly is. A tear slipped down my cheek before I could stop it. I wiped it quickly, but she didn't pretend not to see. The storm outside intensified. Wind whistled against the siding. My kitchen felt too small, too quiet for the magnitude of the truth unfolding inside it. I closed the notebook gently. "What do I do with this?" "That's up to you," she said. "You can bury it, or you can bring the truth into the open." My jaw tightened. My father is already turning the town against me. He told people I'm unstable, dangerous. He said Mia ruined Christmas. Her face didn't so much as flinch. "Yes," she said. "Because a man who fears losing control always chooses to discredit the one person he couldn't break." Her words hit so deeply it hurt to breathe. "What happens if I use this, if I expose him?" I asked. Her eyes shone with something like weary understanding. "Then you stop the cycle. For yourself. And for your daughter." Before I could respond, a soft rustling sounded from down the hallway. Mia stood there, rubbing her eyes, clutching her stuffed bear. "Mommy," she whispered. I heard voices. I walked to her, lifting her into my arms. She tucked her head against my shoulder. When I turned back, Evelyn had risen from her chair. "I should go," she said quietly. "You can't drive in a storm like this." Her pale eyes warmed not with comfort, but with something firmer, steadier. "I live 2 streets over. I'm not fragile, dear." I almost smiled. She slipped into her coat, pulling the collar up. Before she reached the door, she paused and turned back to me. "Whatever your father does next, don't let him convince you you're alone. You have allies he doesn't know about, and you have truth he cannot bury." I swallowed hard. Why help me? This time she did smile, small but genuine. "Because I owed Everett, and because you deserve better than the world that man tried to build for you." Then she left. The wind swallowed her figure almost instantly as she stepped into the storm. I locked the door, pressing my forehead against the wood, Mia's small arm hooked around my neck. The truth was unfolding faster than I was ready for. But it was unfolding, and there was no closing it now. I carried Mia back to bed, smoothing her hair until she drifted off again. Then I returned to the kitchen and opened the notebook once more. The pages whispered when I touched them secrets that had slept for more than a decade. I wasn't just fighting humiliation or retaliation anymore. I was fighting a system, a legacy of manipulation, a dynasty of control. My father didn't want me to walk away because of pride. He wanted me to walk away because without me the Dawson image fractured. Without me silent, his story collapsed. I closed the notebook again, my mind steadying into something sharper than fear. Resolve. My phone buzzed, a new message from a number I didn't recognize. When I opened it, the blood in my veins went cold. A photo of Mia, taken at the Christmas dinner hours earlier. The caption read, "You should have stayed in your place." My breath vanished, my fingers shook, and for the first time in my life I wasn't afraid. I was ready. The war had started, and I was done losing. Under the gray-blue light of early morning, I sat at the kitchen table staring at the photo until the edges of the screen blurred. Mia's little face was turned toward the Christmas tree, unaware that someone had been watching her close enough to capture her in perfect focus, bold enough to send it to me as a threat. My hands curled tight around the phone until my knuckles whitened. I reread the caption, "You should have stayed in your place." The words felt like a rope tightening around my lungs. The house was silent except for the faint hum of the refrigerator. Snow pressed against the windows in soft layers, muffling the world outside. It should have been peaceful. Instead, fear crackled in the air like electricity, sharp and humming. A sound drifted from down the hall, Mia climbing out of bed, her feet soft against the hardwood. I slid the phone face down on the table just as she peeked around the corner, her hair wild from sleep. "Mom, can I have waffles?" Her voice, so small and earnest, hit me like a blow. I forced a smile. "Of course, sweetheart." She padded to the table, dragging her bear by one arm, and climbed into her chair. I moved through the kitchen, automatically pulling ingredients from memory rather than thought. Every minute that passed, my mind kept circling back to the same question: who took that picture? And how close had they been? I set a plate of waffles in front of her. She grinned, syrup already smeared on her cheek. I brushed her hair back gently, my fingers trembling as they touched her skin. "I'm going to make sure you're safe," I whispered. She didn't hear it, but I meant it with every cell in my body. By the time I dropped Mia off at school, the sun was struggling through the heavy snow clouds. I watched her run toward her teacher backpack, bouncing smile bright. I stayed until she was inside the building, then checked my phone again. Another message. This one wasn't a photo, just a line of text. "You embarrassed the family. There are consequences." I didn't recognize the number, no name, no clue. But I recognized the voice behind it. My father's. It didn't sound like him, not directly, but the cadence, the tone, the entitlement dripping from every word. It was the language he had spoken all my life, the language of control. I took a long, slow breath and started the car. Instead of heading home, I drove toward my office. My company, my one sanctuary, felt different that morning. The parking lot was covered in a thin layer of ice. My employees moved quickly from their cars to the building collars up, faces pinched from the cold. Inside, the familiar scent of sawdust and fresh coffee should have comforted me. It didn't. Before I even reached my office door, my project manager Caleb stepped into my path. His expression was tight worry etched around his eyes. "You need to see something," he said. I followed him to the break room where a laptop waited open on the counter. He tapped the trackpad. A local news article flashed on the screen, my company's name, in bold letters near the top. "Whitmore construction owner storms out of family Christmas, cancels $3.2 million contract in emotional outburst." My stomach dropped. Scroll. "Whitmore has a history of unstable behavior," a source close to the family said. Scroll. "Concerns have been raised about whether her business decisions are influenced by emotional volatility rather than professionalism." Scroll. "Contractors question whether Whitmore Construction can continue operating under such leadership." Bile rose in my throat. Caleb muttered, "They're painting you as unstable, as dangerous." My father's fingerprints were all over this. He had spent years cultivating relationships with local reporters, donations, charity events, handshakes, favors. They owed him stories, and he was calling them in. A surge of anger burned through me, sudden and hot. He thought he could break me publicly. He thought I would retreat like I always had, quiet, obedient, ashamed. Not this time. Did anyone from the crew say anything? I asked quietly. "No. And they won't. We're with you." Emotion pricked behind my eyes. I nodded once. "Thank you." Caleb hesitated. "There's more." He clicked another tab, an anonymous post on a contractor forum. At first glance, it looked like gossip, anonymous, petty, but the details made my skin crawl. "Claims of financial mismanagement at Whitmore Construction owner, suspected of using company funds for personal drama." "That's a lie," I whispered. "I know," Caleb said, "but they're seeding doubt. The timing isn't a coincidence. My father again. Destroy her reputation, undercut her confidence, question her competence." He was following a blueprint he had perfected long ago. I closed the laptop with a trembling hand. "Call a meeting, full crew, 10 minutes. When the team gathered in the workshop, the place with exposed beams, the smell of lumber, the heartbeat of my business. I looked around at the people who had watched me climb from cleaning job sites to running one of the top contracting companies in the region. Some had been with me from the start, others had joined later. But all of them were here because they trusted me. I drew in a breath. "You've probably seen the stories." Nods, murmurs, a few curses. I continued, voice steady. "A wealthy man is angry that I didn't tolerate his cruelty to my daughter. And he's using his influence to try to break me. But I'm not going anywhere, and neither is this company." A wave of resolve rippled across the room. Caleb spoke up, voice strong. "We're behind you, all the way." Others echoed him. A rough chorus of loyalty. For the first time since the nightmare began, I felt my chest loosen. I thanked them and dismissed the meeting, but before I could return to my office, my phone buzzed again. A text from my brother Ethan. "We need to talk. Mom's panicking. Dad's furious. They're calling lawyers. Whatever you're planning, stop, please." I stared at the message. Something cold slid through me. Whatever I'm planning, he didn't understand. I wasn't planning revenge. I was planning protection. For Mia, for my company, for myself. I texted him back. "I'm done being quiet." 3 dots appeared. Then Riley. "Dad says you're unstable. He says you're endangering Mia's future. He's convincing people. Maybe you should come talk to him before things get worse." A bitter laugh escaped my lips. Talk to him. As if reasoning with a man who believed he owned me would fix anything. I didn't reply. Instead, I opened the notebook Evelyn had given me. I flipped to the page with my name, those carved, urgent words. Protect her. My grandfather couldn't save himself from the system he built, but he wanted me to. As I stared at the ink, something inside me hardened into purpose. If my father wanted a war, he was about to learn just how much strength he'd underestimated. Because I wasn't 7, I wasn't a scared teenager. I wasn't a woman begging for scraps of approval. I was a mother, and mothers don't lose. By mid-afternoon, a storm matching the one outside brewed across the city. News segments, online articles, whispers at supply houses, all of it fueled by the narrative my father was feeding the world. But I had something he didn't. Evidence, truth, and the courage to use it. At 4 o'clock my phone rang. It was my attorney Marcy, breathless and furious. "I just received 2 separate inquiries about you," she said. "One questioning Mia's safety, the other questioning your mental stability after a so-called public breakdown." These didn't come from strangers. "My father," I said. "Yes," she replied, "and he's trying to get ahead of something. That means he's afraid. Really afraid." A silence stretched. Then Marcy inhaled sharply. "Riley, what did you do on Christmas Eve?" I told her everything. What my father said, how he humiliated Mia, how I walked out, how I canceled the contract, what Evelyn brought me, the threatening messages. When I finished, Marcy said quietly, "This isn't a family dispute anymore. This is a coordinated smear campaign. So what do? We go on offense." I closed my eyes. Finally. "That notebook," she added. "Bring it to my office tomorrow morning. Every page. And Riley. Yes, don't be alone tonight." Her words crept into my bones. After I hung up, I drove to pick up Mia from school, my heartbeat steady but fast. She ran to me the moment she saw my car arms, outstretched, laughter in her throat. I lifted her into my arms, breathing her in like oxygen. We drove home slowly, the world outside painted white from snowfall. When we stepped inside the house, I locked the door, double-checked the windows, and kept the lights low. Mia played on the living room rug, stacking blocks and humming softly. I stood in the doorway, watching her heart heavy and full all at once. Then a knock, sharp, deliberate, too familiar. My blood iced. I walked to the door, peering through the side window. A silhouette, tall, rigid, unmoving. My throat tightened. My father. He lifted his hand and knocked again, louder this time. "Riley," he called, voice chillingly calm. "We need to talk." My pulse thudded in my ears. I didn't open the door. I didn't move. Then his tone lowered into something darker. "You brought this on yourself." Mia looked up at me, her big brown eyes worried. "Mom," I forced a smile, though my chest was tight. "It's okay, sweetheart." But it wasn't. Not anymore. My father wasn't just angry, he was escalating, and I knew without a shred of doubt that the storm that began at Christmas dinner was nowhere close to ending. It was only just beginning. I didn't realize I had stopped breathing until Caleb touched my shoulder and said my name for the second time. The conference room around me felt too bright, too still, too small for what the investigator had just revealed, that someone on my father's side had legally tried to attach Mia's name to a fraudulent financial structure. The walls seemed to tilt, not enough to make me fall, just enough to remind me that the ground under my feet had never been as solid as I believed. I swallowed hard. "Can you repeat that?" I asked. The investigator, a middle-aged woman with steady eyes and a voice that didn't waver, folded her hands together on the table. "Your daughter's name was listed as a beneficiary in a shell entity connected to the Dawson estate. We believe the structure was created to divert funds and create leverage. The signature listed for you is forged. The signature listed for her father appears genuine." I felt the room fade into a distant hum. Her father? The words came quietly scraped raw from my throat. She nodded. Connor Hayes. A cold wave rolled down my spine. Connor, a ghost from a life I had buried. How did he get pulled into this? Why now? My hands curled slowly into fists under the table. "Where did you get these documents?" I whispered. "They were turned in anonymously," she said. "And the timing wasn't an accident." A soft ache spread through my chest, not painful but hollowing. Once again my father had built a maze around me, except this time the walls were made of paperwork, not insults. He was trying to make me look unstable, irresponsible, even dangerous with money. He was trying to weaponize legal systems I barely understood. He wasn't just trying to ruin me, he was trying to take Mia. I forced myself to sit straighter. "What happens next?" "We need the original paperwork," she said. "It could help your case significantly. One clean, untampered document could prove fraud across multiple branches of this family." I should have felt hopeful, but all that rose in me was dread, because I already knew who had the original. My father. And if he had it, he would rather burn the house down than let me see it. My attorney leaned in. "Riley, you don't have to go anywhere near him. We'll handle this." But I shook my head. This wasn't about pride or fear anymore. This was about my daughter. I know where the documents are, and I know what he'll do if he realizes you're coming. The attorney opened her mouth to protest. Caleb looked horrified, but I was already standing. "I'll get them." The words came from somewhere deep inside, somewhere exhausted and furious and done being small. Outside, the storm was worsening. The sky bruised over with shades of gray and blue, the kind that warned of a long night ahead. The wind howled against the windows of the office, rattling them in their frames. But none of that scared me, not compared to what my father was capable of. I drove to the Dawson house with Mia in the back seat, humming soft songs to herself as she traced frost on the window. Every time she sang a quiet note, something fierce and protective tightened in my chest. This whole fight wasn't about money or reputation or pride. This was about her, keeping her safe, keeping her loved, keeping her whole. By the time we reached the house, the Christmas decorations, once warm and glowing, looked like relics of a lie. The lights flickered half-heartedly against the storming sky. The wreath on the door sagged the ribbon loose, as if exhausted by the performance. I lifted Mia into my arms and carried her up the steps. She rested her cheek against my shoulder, trusting me completely. That trust was the only anchor I had left. I rang the bell. The door opened a few inches, the chain still locked. My father's face appeared in the gap, his eyes narrowing when he saw me. "What do you want?" he asked. His voice was calm in the way a closed fist is calm before it strikes. "I need the original trust documents for Mia," I said. His jaw tightened. "You're not entitled to anything in this house," he said slowly. "You forfeited that when you walked away." "You insulted my daughter," I replied. "We're not doing that again." He didn't flinch. He never did when he hurt people. "You think you can come here and make demands," he said, his lip curling. "You should be grateful I didn't call child services on you after the stunt you pulled." I felt something inside me harden like ice. "You forged my name," I said, "and you used my daughter as leverage." His expression flickered just slightly, but enough to confirm everything. I stepped closer. "Open the door." "No." I met his gaze, unblinking. "Dad," This isn't going away." He stared at me in silence for a long moment. Then he closed the door. I heard the metallic scrape of the chain sliding out of its bracket. The door reopened, this time fully. "You have 5 minutes," he said. I stepped inside, holding Mia close. The house felt colder than it should have been. The air carried no scent of pine, no warmth from the fireplace, no echo of laughter. It felt abandoned from the inside out. Artificial. Hollow. Like him. "The documents are in my study," he said curtly, walking ahead of us. I followed. He opened a drawer, pulled out a folder, then held it just out of my reach. "You want these?" he asked quietly. I nodded once. He leaned in until I could feel his breath on my face. "Then you're going to give me something too." My pulse spiked. "No," I said. Every instinct screamed to run. "I'm not bargaining." But he smiled a slow, cruel smile. "You think you have power here?" he murmured. "You don't. I built this family. I built this town. And I can unbuild you just as easily." Behind me, Mia shifted in my arms, clutching my sweater. My father's eyes flicked to her. "Look at her," he said. "Clinging to you like she's scared of her own shadow. You've made her that way. I could give her stability. You can't." My blood turned to fire. "Don't you dare talk about her," I whispered. He raised the folder higher out of reach. "You want these documents? Apologize. Admit you overreacted. Admit you humiliated this family. Admit that you need me." The room vibrated with silence. I looked at the folder, then at him, then at Mia, her fingers curled in my hair. And in that moment clarity washed through me, clean, sharp, merciless. "I don't need you," I said softly. "And I never will again." Before he could react, I pulled out my phone and turned on the camera. His expression snapped into panic. "What are you doing recording?" I said. "Say what you just said. Tell everyone what you've done with my daughter's identity. Tell them about the shell entity. Tell them why you forged my name." His face twisted. "You wouldn't." I kept the camera steady. He lunged forward and slapped the phone out of my hand. It skidded across the hardwood floor, the recording still running. "You ungrateful mom," Mia, whispered voice quivering. That single word cut the air. I picked her up again, holding her close. "You're not getting the documents," my father hissed. "Not today, not ever." He shoved the folder into the drawer and slammed it shut. I turned toward the door. My heart hammered, but my voice stayed steady. "This isn't over," I said. He didn't reply. I walked out without looking back. Mia held tightly in my arms, the storm swirling around us like a warning. Snowflakes stung my cheeks as we hurried to the car, but none of it hurt half as much as his last words. I strapped Mia into her seat. She looked up at me, eyes wide. "Mom, Grandpa doesn't like us, does he?" I closed my eyes, feeling them burn. "No, sweetheart," I said. "But we don't need him." As I drove away from the house, the storm grew heavier. The world blurred into white streaks and swirling shadows. My windshield wipers fought uselessly against the wind. Halfway down the road, my phone buzzed on the passenger seat. A message. "Unknown number. 1 line. You made a mistake. And you won't get a second chance." My hands tightened on the steering wheel. He had declared war. Good, because he had no idea who he was up against, and this time I wasn't fighting alone. The storm had swallowed the sky by the time Mia and I made it home. The wind dragged its nails across the siding, rattling the windows like something trying to break in. I carried her inside, peeled off her snowy boots, and wrapped her in a blanket before settling her on the couch with her favorite animated movie. She curled up quietly, her little face pale from everything she had heard and sensed, even if she didn't understand all of it. While she watched, I moved to the kitchen and gripped the edge of the counter, letting the cold granite steady me. I had gone to my father's house for answers, for documents, for truth. I came back with nothing except a new threat. Mia's reflection flickered in the dark window. She reached for her stuffed bear, holding it like a shield. Seeing her that small, that shaken something inside me twisted with a sharpness I couldn't look away from. I failed her today. The thought punched me in the chest. But then another thought rose clearer, harder. No, I didn't fail her. He failed her, every step of the way. My phone buzzed on the counter. I picked it up, half expecting another threat. Instead, it was Evelyn. Saw the storm on the news. "Are you safe? Should I come by?" I typed back quickly. "We're okay, but things are getting worse." "Can I call in 30? Her response came instantly. Always. I put the phone down and inhaled deeply. The house felt too quiet, the way homes do after too much has been said or not enough. I forced myself toward the living room, sat beside Mia, and wrapped an arm around her. Her small body leaned into mine as if nothing in the world could be safer. "Mom?" "Yes, baby." She paused, staring at the TV but not seeing it. "Why was Grandpa so mad at you?" Her voice was soft, curious, innocent, untouched by the heaviness adults assign to cruelty. I swallowed and brushed her hair back. Sometimes people get angry when they want control they shouldn't have. She blinked. "Do we have to see him again?" My throat tightened. "No, sweetheart. You never have to see anyone who hurts you." Relief flooded her face so quickly it hurt to look at. We stayed like that for a while. When she finally fell asleep against my side, I carried her to her room, tucking her under her warmest quilt. She murmured something half dream, half memory, and I stood watching her long after her breathing steadied. Only when she slept did I allow myself to fall apart. Back in the living room, I leaned against the wall and let out a long, shaking breath. My hands still tingled from where my father had slapped the phone out of them. My cheek felt warm from the echo of his rage. My heart drummed too fast, too loud. I had spent so long learning how to be strong that I forgot strength isn't constant. It flickers, it falters, it fractures. And tonight mine had cracked in places I didn't know were vulnerable. I poured myself a glass of water, then sat at the dining table with the notebook Evelyn had given me. Its leather cover was creased from years of being held, gripped by someone who knew danger before it arrived. I flipped open to the pages filled with my grandfather's handwriting, the notes, the warnings, the names, and stared at the one line that had been the heartbeat of his fear. Protect her. Protect who, me or Mia? And what exactly had he known? What had he seen coming? I traced the ink with my finger, the grooves pressed deeply into the page as if he carved the words while running out of time. My phone buzzed again. Evelyn calling. I answered quietly. "Hey?" Her voice was warm but clipped with concern. "Tell me everything." So I did. I told her about the forged signature, the shell entity, my father's refusal to hand over the documents, his threat, the photo from the unknown number, the way he looked at Mia as if she were a problem to be solved. When I finished, Evelyn exhaled sharply. "He's escalating." "That means you're close to something. Close to what I don't even know what they've built." "Power structures," she said. "Money pipelines, old secrets wrapped in new laws. These wealthy families never fight clean." My pulse ticked faster. "Evelyn, is this what you warned me about?" A beat of silence. "Yes," she said finally. "It's exactly what I warned you about." I pressed my fingers against my forehead. "What am I up against?" "Not just one man," she replied. "You're up against a system your father helped build. A system your grandfather rejected before he died, which is why they shut him out. Why they rewrote the narrative. Why they control everything that touches the Dawson name." The air felt heavy, thick, pressing on my lungs. "So, what do?" I asked. "You gather allies," she said. "You gather proof. And Riley, you stop assuming blood is stronger than truth." I closed my eyes. "That's already happening." "And one more thing," she added. "Keep your daughter close. You're not wrong to feel watched. Someone is watching you." My stomach twisted. "Do you know who?" "No," she said softly. "But I know why. Why? Because powerful people only watch what threatens them." Her words crawled under my skin. After we hung up, I checked the locks again, then the windows. The outside lights flickered in the wind shadows, stretching across the snow like long fingers. Fear wanted to coil inside me, but something else rose faster: resolve. I sat back down at the table and turned to a blank page in the notebook. For the first time, I let myself write freely my fears, my suspicions, every memory of my father threatening me, dismissing me, pushing me toward silence. Every detail of that Christmas dinner. Every whisper Savannah dropped about inheritance rumors. Every sign I had ignored because I wanted to believe they were incapable of something darker. By the time I finished, the page was full. Then my phone lit up again. A new message, unknown number, a location pin, no words, no explanation, just coordinates. My breath caught. The address was familiar. A storage facility 2 miles outside Redwood Falls. My father had a unit there for decades. The message came again. If you want the truth, come now. My pulse thudded painfully. Trap warning opportunity. I didn't know, but the storm outside was howling, and something inside me whispered that the window to learn the truth was small, shrinking by the minute. I grabbed my coat, checked on Mia again, kissed her forehead, and stepped out into the freezing night with the notebook pressed to my chest, the wind carving sharp lines across my skin as I headed toward the car. The road was nearly empty, the snowfall thick and relentless. Streetlights flickered like dying stars. Every turn seemed swallowed by darkness, the world narrowing into a tunnel of white and shadow. As I approached the storage facility, my headlights swept across rows of identical units. The wind sliced through the gaps like a blade. My hands were shaking when I parked. I stepped out, boots crunching on ice. Unit 14. The one my father always kept locked with a heavy padlock. My breath fogged in front of me as I approached. The storm screamed overhead. Then, a soft click. Someone unlocked the unit from the inside. My feet froze to the ground. The metal door slid upward inch by inch, groaning under the weight of age. Light spilled onto the snow, and a silhouette stood there. Tall, still, nameless. My heart slammed against my ribs. The figure stepped forward into the light, then spoke. Riley, it's time you finally learned the truth. A man I hadn't seen in nearly 20 years stepped out from the glow of the storage unit's single flickering bulb, and for a moment the wind was the only thing that moved. He looked older, lines carved around his eyes, shoulders, carrying a heaviness I didn't remember, but his face was unmistakable. Uncle Raymond, my father's younger brother, the outcast, the one who left town and never came back, the one everyone whispered about like a ghost story. My breath stalled in my chest. You, I managed. He lifted his hand slowly, not in surrender but in gentleness. I didn't mean to scare you. The storm whipped across the lot, rattling the row of metal doors like they were ribs of some giant creature. I felt my pulse ticking fast under my skin, a warning that I was too far from home, too close to danger, and much too close to the truth. What are you doing here? I asked. I'm here because you're running out of time, he said, and because you deserve to know what your father has been doing. My heart hammered painfully. You sent the coordinates? Yes. And the messages? No. His gaze sharpened. Someone else wants you here too, but not for the same reason I do. A cold shiver crawled down my spine. He stepped aside and motioned toward the open unit. Come in, it's freezing. And you need to see this. I hesitated. Every instinct screamed danger. But I also wasn't reckless. I held up my phone. If I don't get out in 5 minutes, the police will know where I am. His mouth twitched, almost a smile, almost sad. Good. You're nothing like your father. I walked past him into the storage unit, senses on high alert. The interior smelled of cold metal and dust. Stacks of crates lined both sides, and a steel table sat in the middle under the bulb's harsh glow. Papers covered the table, old folders, sealed envelopes, legal documents, photographs. Raymond closed the door just enough to block the wind, but not enough to trap me. I appreciated that. He took a deep breath. This is the part they never wanted you to find. I crossed my arms. Then start talking." He picked up an old leather binder and placed it in front of me. "Before your grandfather died, he changed his estate plan." My chest tightened. "I know. Savannah mentioned something, but no," he cut in gently. "She didn't know the truth. No one did. Your father erased it." He opened the binder. There, in crisp legal lettering, was a line that made my breath hitch: "Primary beneficiary Riley Dawson." I stared at it, the letters blurring. "That's not possible," I whispered. "It's not only possible," he said, "it was intentional." He pulled out another document, an old letter with my grandfather's shaky handwriting. "He left this for you, but your father intercepted it the day after the funeral." I blinked, stunned. "Why?" He paused, his voice quieter. "Because you were meant to inherit everything. Not Savannah. Not your father. You." My stomach twisted. "Why me?" "Because Raymond said, meeting my eyes, he saw what your father was turning Savannah into. And he saw what your father did to you as a child. He didn't want to reward cruelty." I swallowed hard. "He never told me. He tried. Your father stopped him." My hands trembled as I lifted the letter. The ink was faded, but the words were unmistakably meant for me. "Riley, I know what they tell you, but listen to the one voice that has never lied to you, your own. One day this family will be tested, and the only one strong enough to hold it together will be you. Protect what's yours. Protect your child. Protect the truth." A breath escaped me, a sound somewhere between disbelief and grief. I looked at Raymond. "Why didn't you give this to me sooner? Because your father threatened every member of this family." He cut off anyone who dared to question him. His jaw clenched. He cut me off the moment I refused to sign papers that would have let him take everything. The storm groaned outside, a deep, hollow moan through the metal. I glanced around the unit. "What else is here?" He moved to the stacks and pulled out a thick file. Proof. Everything he's been hiding. Fraud, coercion, forged signatures, even the shell entity tied to your daughter. My breath stilled. "You know about that. I know he used Mia because he couldn't control you." His voice cracked, not from weakness, but from the kind of anger that comes from witnessing injustice too long. "He used Connor to try to force you into compliance. But Connor stepped into the game because your father dangled money in front of him." My jaw tightened. "So Connor's involved." Raymond nodded. "And he's more desperate than you realize." I closed my eyes for a moment. It was like being thrown into icy water, the shock, the disorientation, the clarity that hurt. When I opened them again, I was steady. "What are you not telling me?" I asked. Raymond hesitated. It was brief, but I saw it. "Your father didn't just cut me out of the family business," he said. "He blamed me for your grandfather's death." My breath caught. What he claimed I manipulated him, that I influenced him to change the will, that I pushed him. His voice dropped. "None of it is true, Riley, but he used those lies to rewrite legal records, to discredit every witness, to ensure no one believed the new will." My hands were cold, my pulse loud and erratic. "So, what really happened?" He exhaled slowly. "Your grandfather died angry. He knew your father planned to take everything even from you, so he tried to protect you with the new documents. But he died before he could register them formally with the courts. He trusted your father to file them. But your father burned them." My stomach twisted sickly. He burned his own father's final wishes. "Yes." "And this," I gestured to the binder, "the files, the evidence." "What is all this?" Raymond looked around the unit. "This is everything your father meant to destroy. Your grandmother asked me to keep duplicates. She knew something was wrong. She knew your father was rewriting the past." I pressed my hand against the cold steel table to steady myself. My breath fogged the air in sharp bursts. "What do you want from me?" I whispered. He stepped closer, his expression urgent. "I want you to use this. All of it. Because your father doesn't just want control, he wants erasure. He wants Mia as leverage because he couldn't control you." A tremor ran through me. He lifted another envelope and set it in my hands. The weight of it was wrong, heavy, metallic. I opened it. Inside lay a key. "The safe deposit box," he said. "The real one. Not the one your father staged. Everything your grandfather left for you is inside. He wanted you to have it when you turned 21. He looked at me with something that might have been pride or sorrow. But your father made sure you never knew it existed." I stared at the key, my vision blurring with heat. "Why are you helping me?" Because he said softly, "I couldn't save your mother, and I couldn't save your grandfather. But I can help you save your daughter." The room went quiet. Silent in a way the storm outside wasn't. I slid the key into my coat pocket. "Does he know you kept all this?" I asked. Raymond shook his head. "If he did, he'd have killed me." My mouth went dry. "You're serious?" "Yes." He looked toward the door. "And now he knows you came here. Someone tipped him off. You shouldn't stay." Fear clawed up my spine. "What do you mean someone tipped him?" But before he could answer, headlights washed across the storage unit rows, slicing through the storm like a knife. Raymond's face drained of color. "Riley! Hide!" My pulse roared in my ears. "No," I whispered. "I'm done hiding." The headlights grew brighter, too bright. A car door slammed. Heavy footsteps crunched across the ice. Raymond grabbed my arm. "Take the evidence. Go out the back. If he finds you, he'll take the documents and destroy everything." I clutched the binder, the key, the files. "But what about you? I'll stall him." "No." "Go." The shouting outside drew closer. Through the crack under the storage door, I saw shadows. 2 men, not one. My father never traveled alone when he wanted to intimidate someone. Raymond shoved open the rear exit door I hadn't noticed before, a narrow metal panel leading into a dark alley behind the units. "Run," he whispered. "This is your only chance." For a moment we locked eyes. His plea was not just for me, it was for Mia. I bolted into the night, the storm swallowing me whole, the evidence pressed tight against my chest as voices exploded behind me, shouting furious searching. And with every step through the snow, one truth beat hard and fast inside me. This wasn't only about money, it wasn't only about power, this was about survival. And the war had only just turned. Snow stung my cheeks as I ran, the wind slicing through my coat like freezing knives. The storm swallowed everything sound, shapes, direction, until all I could hear was the ragged rush of my own breath and the pounding of my boots in the slush. The folder was clamped to my chest with numb fingers, each page inside it a heartbeat of truth I couldn't afford to lose. Behind me, voices ricocheted across the storage lot. "Find her, check between the units. Raymond, get out of our way." Their shouts collided with the storm, turning into jagged echoes that chased me down the narrow alley behind the storage facility. I didn't dare look back. The snow was too heavy, the night too dark, and if I hesitated, if I let fear slow me for even a second, everything would end. I reached a chain-link fence at the back of the property. Its top was dusted with snow, but ice glimmered where the metal showed through. I had no time to think. I climbed, fingers slipping boots, scraping breath, burning the inside of my throat. When I swung my leg over the top, the cold bit straight through the denim, but I dropped to the other side anyway, landing hard on my knee. A flare of pain shot up my leg. I gasped, staggered, but forced myself upright. "Mia, the evidence, keep moving." The storm tugged at me with each step, a living thing pulling me backward. My hair whipped across my face, blinding me. I shoved it aside with a shaking hand. Ahead, barely visible through the swirling white, was the outline of a small wooded area. If I could cut through it, I'd reach the main road faster. I stumbled toward it, each step sinking deeper into the drifts. Behind me, the metal fence rattled. They were climbing over. I pushed into the trees, the branches clawing at my coat, snow dumping from their limbs in heavy clumps as I passed under them. The light from the storage facility disappeared behind me, swallowed by the night. Here the snow fell quieter, muffled by needles and bark, but my heart still hammered loud enough I was sure they could hear it. Then a sound snapped through the dark. Footsteps, crunching through snow, too close. I spun, clutching the folder tighter, pressing my back against a tree trunk. My breath came in short bursts, fogging in front of my face. The footsteps paused, then turned, then headed away. I didn't move until they vanished entirely. Only when the silence settled did I force myself forward again. My knee throbbed with every step, my fingers stiff, my eyelashes rimmed with frost. But I kept going until the trees thinned and the orange glow of streetlights blurred through the storm. When I reached the road, my car was still parked where I'd left it earlier by the old hiking trail lot, a dark shape half buried in snow. My hands fumbled uselessly with the keys before I finally managed to unlock the door. I slid inside, breath shaking so hard it made my shoulders tremble. The heat sputtered to life and fogged the windows instantly. I held the folder in my lap, staring down at it through the haze of my own breath. Raymond risked everything. My father sent men after me. Someone else wanted me there too. The truth wasn't just dangerous, it was explosive. I had no idea where Raymond was now, whether he was safe, whether he escaped. The guilt twisted hard, but I couldn't go back for him. Not now. Not with Mia waiting at home, not with my father's men scouring the storm for any sign of me. I reached for my phone with numb fingers and dialed Marcy, my attorney. She picked up on the first ring. "Riley, thank God. Where are you?" "In my car," I said, voice shaking. "I have the files." "You what?" "I have the originals, or copies, duplicates my uncle kept, the ones my father tried to destroy." Her inhale was sharp. "Riley, do not go home. If they followed you, they didn't," I whispered. "I made sure." Another pause. "Do you have the key?" I touched my coat pocket. The metal was still warm from my grip. "Yes." "Good," she said. "Do not lose it. I'll meet you in the morning, but you need to disappear for tonight." "I can't disappear," I said. "My daughter." "She should not stay in your home tonight." My heart lurched. "Why not?" "Because your father is escalating, and people who escalate often overreach. If he's desperate enough to commit fraud, he's desperate enough to do worse." I closed my eyes tightly. The truth of her words felt like a punch. "I'll take Mia to my neighbor's house," I said. "Or maybe to a hotel." "No hotels," she cut in gently. "Anywhere traceable is too risky. Stay with someone he'd never expect." I considered my list of allies. It was short. Too short. Then one name came to mind. Evelyn. She lived in a small cabin outside town tucked behind old pines, a place few people even remembered existed. My father would never go there. He had spent years pretending Evelyn didn't exist, pretending her friendship with my grandfather wasn't real. "Okay," I whispered. "I know where to go. Call me the moment you're safe. I will." When I hung up, my hands were trembling again. I gripped the steering wheel hard enough my knuckles ached. Then I drove. The storm fought me every mile, turning the road into a white river. By the time I reached the house, my hair was soaked, my coat stiff with ice. The porch light flickered as I climbed the steps and knocked softly. The door opened immediately. Evelyn stood there, wrapped in a wool shawl, her silver hair pulled into a loose braid. Her eyes swept over my face, calm, steady, deeply knowing, and she stepped aside without a word. I moved inside the warmth, finally letting my body shake as adrenaline drained from my limbs. She reached for the folder in my hands. "You found it," she murmured. "I didn't know what I'd find," I said. "But I found him. My father's brother." Evelyn's breath caught just barely. "Raymond," I nodded. The quiet that followed was thick enough to touch. "I thought he was gone," she whispered. "He almost was," I said. She motioned toward the kitchen table. "Sit. You're freezing." I sank into a chair while she put a kettle on the stove. The cabin smelled of pine wood and cinnamon grounding and real. When she sat across from me, steam curled between us from the 2 mugs she placed on the table. "Start from the beginning," she said gently. So I told her everything. The storage unit, Raymond's warnings, the forged documents, the key, the men my father sent, how close they came, the fear, the truth, the promises my grandfather made in ink no one ever meant for me to see. When I finished, Evelyn closed her eyes for a long moment. Your grandfather always feared this, she said softly. He knew the power your father would inherit simply because the world bends for men like him. He tried to stop the cycle, and he believed you'd be the only one strong enough to break it. I swallowed. Break, what the family curse, she whispered. The legacy of control, trauma passed down like inheritance, men shaping the narrative while women carried the consequences. Her voice wavered not from weakness but memory. What do I do now? I asked. You use what you've been given, she said. You let truth become your weapon. You protect your daughter not by running but by revealing every lie they built around you. My heart pounded. They'll fight back. Yes, she said, but now you have leverage they cannot erase. I touched the folder again, feeling the weight of my family's buried sins under my fingers. Then Evelyn asked a question so gentle it hurt. Where is Mia tonight? My stomach dropped. Home. Asleep. Evelyn's expression shifted, an undercurrent of urgency rising beneath her calm. Riley, she whispered. She cannot stay there alone. Not tonight. Not with your father in the state he's in. I was already reaching for my phone. My neighbor answered on the third ring, groggy but kind. Riley. Everything okay? Can you check on Mia? I asked, trying to keep panic out of my voice. Please, right now. He didn't question it. Of course. The seconds stretched into an eternity. Then I'm in your house. She's not here. My breath stopped. What I whispered. She's not in her bed. I've searched the rooms. Riley, the back door is open. The world spun. I gripped the edge of the table until my fingers burned. Evelyn's voice became distant, muffled as if underwater. Riley, what did he say to you earlier today? My father's words replayed cold and deliberate. You won't get a second chance. A sharp primal terror tore through me. I stood so fast the chair clattered to the floor. I have to go, I whispered, already moving toward the door, vision narrowing until all I could see was the storm outside and the yawning darkness waiting to swallow me. But Evelyn grabbed my arm. Riley, stop. Think. I can't. She's gone. I have to listen to me, she said firmly. Men like your father don't snatch children in the dark. They manipulate, they intimidate, they use fear, not force. But she's not home, and that means someone else moved her. My blood ran cold. Who I breathed. Before Evelyn could speak, her phone buzzed on the table. She picked it up. Her eyes widened. She handed it to me with trembling fingers. A message glowed on the screen. A photo. Mia. Sitting in a car I didn't recognize. Tears streaking down her cheeks. Her stuffed bear crushed against her chest. And the message below it. If you want your daughter back, bring me the key. For a long moment I couldn't breathe. The image on Evelyn's phone burned into my vision until the whole world blurred around it. Mia in the backseat of a strange car. Her cheeks streaked with tears. Her stuffed bear clutched so tight, the seams strained. Her little eyes were red wide, frightened. My hands trembled as I lowered the phone. Who sent this? My voice barely scraped out. Evelyn swallowed hard. The numbers blocked. My mind splintered into panic and purpose all at once. I forced myself to take one slow breath, then another. I couldn't fall apart. I couldn't scream. I couldn't run blindly into the storm. I had to be strategic. I had to be lethal. For Mia. I clenched my fists, grounding myself in the present moment. Snow lashed against the cabin windows. A log snapped in the fireplace. Evelyn watched me, her expression caught between fear and fierce confidence. He didn't take her, she said quietly. Your father wouldn't send a photo like this. He wouldn't risk proof. I nodded slowly. I know. Then who? The answer came before I was ready for it. Connor. His name tasted like rust, bitter, poison. My breath shuddered out. He wants the key. He wants the money, Evelyn corrected. Your father promised him a cut of the estate to get him involved in the first place. When your father failed to deliver, Connor took matters into his own hands. I felt myself sway. She steadied me with a hand on my arm. "You are not powerless," she said firmly. "You know who took her. You know what he wants. And you know what he fears." "What does he fear?" I whispered. Evelyn's eyes hardened. Exposure. Men like him survive on manipulation, secrecy, and shame. Bring him into the light and he crumbles. But that didn't help me right now. Not with Mia in danger. I closed my eyes, gripping the table until my nails cut into the wood. Then I opened them with resolve I didn't know I possessed. "I'll deal with exposure later," I said. "Right now, I'm getting my daughter back." Evelyn nodded once. "Then we make him come to you." "How?" "By giving him what he thinks he wants." My pulse thundered. "The key." She lifted her chin. "He believes the key unlocks the entire Dawson estate. He believes it holds millions, leverage, control, power. But he doesn't know the truth. That the safe deposit box doesn't contain money," I whispered. "It contains evidence. Evidence that could destroy my father. Evidence he'd kill to keep hidden. Evidence that would expose generations of corruption. If Connor opened that box hoping for wealth, he would be holding dynamite instead." I pushed away from the table, pacing the cabin floor. "He asked for the key," I murmured. "He expects me to follow instructions." "And you will," Evelyn said calmly, "until you learn where she is." I stopped pacing. "He'll demand a meeting." "He will," she agreed, "and he'll underestimate you." I scoffed softly. "Everyone in my family underestimates me." Evelyn stepped closer, lowering her voice. "Not anymore." A part of me wanted to cry. Another part, the part built from years of enduring, surviving, holding myself together when no one else did, rose with new strength. Before I could say anything, my phone buzzed. A new message. "Come alone. No police. No lawyers. Midnight. Old Miller Bridge. Bring the key, or you'll never see her again." My lips parted around a breath that scraped my throat raw. Evelyn leaned over my shoulder. "It's a trap. Of course it's a trap." My voice was steady. "But I'm going." Evelyn pressed a shaking hand against her mouth. "Riley, I'm not giving him the key," I said, "but I'm going." She met my eyes. Her fear was real, but so was her trust. "Then we prepare." I tucked the key into my coat pocket. The metal pressed warm against my palm, grounding me. I grabbed the folder too stuffed with documents, letters, statements, the truth of a family built on manipulation. I tucked a USB drive inside the inner lining of my coat. Evelyn insisted on it. "If he destroys the folder, you still have digital copies," she said. Then she handed me something else. A small voice recorder. "Put this in your glove," she said. "It may save you later." I closed my hand around it. "Thank you." We stepped out into the storm together. The wind battered the porch so hard it nearly knocked me sideways. Snow blasted across the clearing in white sheets. The night swallowed everything except the faint glow of my headlights. "You shouldn't do this alone," Evelyn yelled through the wind. "I won't be alone," I shouted back. "I have Mia." It was the truest thing I'd ever said. She squeezed my arm. "Then bring her home, Riley." I nodded once, then I drove. The road to the old Miller Bridge twisted through forest and over narrow passes, where the storm seemed determined to peel the world apart. Ice glistened across the highway. My hands cramped from gripping the wheel so tightly. Every mile felt like a countdown. At 11:56 p.m., the bridge came into view, long, wooden, weather-beaten, suspended over a ravine so deep it swallowed sound. My headlights swept across the emptiness. No cars, no movement, just the storm. Then a pair of headlights blinked on from the far end of the bridge. A black SUV rolled slowly toward the center. My chest constricted. Mia. Please let her be in there. I pulled forward until my car stopped 30 feet from the SUV. My hands shook as I shoved the key into my pocket and stepped out into the freezing night. Snow whipped across the bridge in gusts. The SUV door opened. A man stepped out, tall, clean-shaven, smiling the same empty smile he wore 7 years ago when he walked away as if he hadn't shattered my entire world. Riley Connor called. Long time. Every instinct inside me recoiled. He approached with confidence dripping off him like this was normal, like he was owed something. "Where is she?" I demanded. He nodded toward the SUV. Safe, warm, but scared. Shame you put her through all this. The rage that ignited in my chest nearly tore my voice apart. You took her, I hissed. He shrugged. You left the door open. I felt nauseous. Give me my daughter. His smile stretched wider. The key, Riley. No deal until I see her. He gestured casually to the back seat. The door cracked open just enough for me to glimpse her small shape. A sob tore from my throat before I could stop it. Mia! She cried my name through the wind, her voice trembling. I stepped forward, but Connor lifted a hand. One at a time. Key first. I forced myself to stop. My whole body shook, adrenaline ripping through me like lightning. Think, think, think. You'll get the key, I said, voice low. But I need her safe in my arms before I hand it over. He laughed. You think I'm stupid, I think you're desperate, I replied. And desperate men make bad trades. His jaw twitched. A crack in the facade. Good. He stepped closer. Key. Now. Let her out. No, let her out. His eyes hardened. Give me the key or I swear to God, Riley, this ends badly. A deep primal fear pulsed through me. I reached into my pocket slowly. His eyes followed my hand with greedy focus. I pulled out the key. His breath caught. That's it, he whispered. Hand it over. I stepped forward just one step, letting the storm swirl between us. He reached out. Then everything happened in a single shattering second. A blinding flash of red and white lights erupted behind the SUV. Sirens howled. The storm lit up like fireworks. Connor spun around, eyes wild. What you called the cops. But I hadn't called them. Someone else had. From behind the flashing lights, a voice boomed through a loudspeaker. Step away from the child. Now! Connor panicked. He lunged toward the SUV. Mia, I screamed. Everything inside me broke free. I ran, faster than I'd ever moved in my life. The world narrowed into a single burning purpose. Reach her, reach her, reach her. Connor grabbed the car door. I slammed into him with full force. He stumbled sideways, shouting as he slipped on the icy planks. The key flew from my hand, skittering across the wooden boards. He lunged for me. I ducked and shoved him back again. He lost his footing. The bridge shook. Then, in a moment I would relive in nightmares, he slipped over the edge, one hand catching the rail body swinging over the ravine. He screamed, Riley, help me. But all I saw was Mia. I grabbed her from the back seat, pulling her into my arms. She sobbed into my coat, shaking violently. Officers stormed the bridge, securing the scene, shouting commands. Two approached the railing and dragged Connor back up, cuffing him as he cursed and spit. I held Mia tighter, burying my face in her hair, breathing her in like oxygen. We're going home, I whispered. We're going home now. She clung to me, crying harder. The storm raged around us, but none of it mattered anymore. Because in the chaos and terror of that night, one thing finally became clear. I wasn't running from the Dawson family anymore. I was coming for them. Mia fell asleep in my arms on the ride to the precinct, her little body trembling every few minutes from leftover fear. Each time she jerked, I pulled her closer, whispering into her hair, promising her she was safe now that no one would ever take her from me again. But even as I said the words, I knew safety was fragile, temporary. A thin sheet of glass separating us from the storm of the Dawson Empire. The moment we stepped into the station, warmth wrapped around us in a rush, heat blasting from vents, fluorescent lights humming overhead. An officer guided us toward a small family room, lined with cheap couches and a vending machine that buzzed louder than comfort allowed. He offered hot chocolate packets and blankets, and I thanked him in a voice that barely belonged to me. My throat still burned from shouting on the bridge. I set Mia down gently. She curled up in the corner of the couch, clutching her bear while I tucked a blanket around her. Her eyelashes were still wet, her breathing uneven. A deep ache pulled at my chest. "Mommy," she whispered, barely audible. "I was scared you wouldn't come." The ache cracked. "I will always come for you," I said, brushing her hair away from her face. "Always." Her small hand reached out, grabbed mine, and didn't let go. She fell asleep again within minutes, exhaustion pulling her under like a tide. I stayed beside her until a soft knock came from the door. It was Marcy, my attorney, still in her coat, snow melting in her dark curls. Her gaze went immediately to Mia. Something tightened behind her eyes, a mix of relief and fury. "She's okay," I whispered. She nodded once, then motioned for me to follow her into the hallway. I reluctantly unclasped my fingers from Mia's hand and stepped out, leaving the door slightly open so I could still hear her breathing. The hallway buzzed with quiet urgency, phones ringing, printers clacking, low voices murmuring behind desks. Officers walked past us with determined strides. The world moved quickly while my own body felt seconds behind reality. Marcy placed a hand on my arm. "Connor's in custody," she said. "They arrested him on multiple counts: kidnapping, extortion, endangerment, violation of parental rights." A cold rush of satisfaction slid through me, thin as glass, but sharp. "He'll try to blame my father," I said, "or claim he didn't mean harm, or that it was all a misunderstanding." "He already tried," Marcy replied dryly. The officers didn't buy it. "Did he mention my father?" He tried to frame the whole thing as a custody dispute gone wrong, but he slipped. He mentioned the deal he was promised. He mentioned money, and he mentioned leverage. Leverage. My stomach knotted. That key, I murmured. That was all he cared about. Marcy nodded. "And we need to talk about that." I exhaled. "The safe deposit box." "Yes, but before we get to that, you need to hear what the officers found when they searched Connor's SUV. My pulse stumbled. What a second phone. Burner. Full of messages from an unidentified number I already knew. "My father's?" I asked. "We're confirming," she said carefully. "But the phrasing, the threats, the instructions, none of it sounds like Connor's style." Someone guided him step by step. I leaned against the wall for support. The weight of everything pressed against my ribs until breathing felt like lifting bricks. "And the safe deposit box," I whispered. "It needs to be opened," she said, "immediately, before your father destroys whatever backup plans he has left." I nodded slowly. "Tomorrow morning. First thing." "No," she said gently but firmly. "Tonight." My head snapped up. "It's almost 2 a.m. "I know. But your father's men were after you tonight. They know you found something. They know you escaped. If we wait until morning, there's a chance the bank won't open at all. Under the right pressure, doors close." I swallowed. The Dawson name could sway banks, courts, entire towns. "Then let's go," I said. "After you do something else," she replied. "What you need a statement on record. For protection. For Mia's sake." I closed my eyes, steadying myself before nodding. Inside the interview room, the fluorescent lights hummed louder, bouncing off concrete walls painted the color of old bones. A detective sat across from me, a recorder already running. His voice was calm, steady, methodical. He asked for my account from the moment I received the first message to the moment officers pulled Connor off the bridge railing. I spoke slowly, carefully, leaving nothing out. Not the threats. Not the storage unit. Not Raymond. Not the key. Not the moment I slammed into Connor on the bridge. My voice cracked only once when I described hearing Mia cry my name. When I finished, the detective folded his hands. "You handled yourself with restraint," he said. Restraint. It didn't feel like restraint. It felt like something primal, wild, ancient, the desperate strength of a mother. "You're lucky you weren't injured," he added, "and lucky you got your daughter back safely." I looked down at my hands, still stained faintly with bridge dust. It wasn't luck. He nodded as if he understood something deeper. After signing the statement, I returned to the family room. Mia was still asleep, her breathing soft and warm. I lifted her into my arms again. She tucked her head into my shoulder automatically. "She shouldn't go back to your house," Marcy said behind me. "I know. I can arrange an escort to the safe deposit box," she added. 2 units armed." A rush of relief warmed my chest. "Thank you." "But there's something else," she said quietly. My grip on Mia tightened. What you need to prepare yourself. If what your uncle said is true, your father's influence may be even stronger than we realize. When we open that box, the truth may not be pretty. And once it's out, there's no going back. No silence, no protection for him, no repairing the Dawson reputation. I met her eyes. I don't want to repair anything I said. I know, but this will break more than your father. I understand. Do you? I looked at Mia's sleeping face, her cheeks blotchy from crying. Yes, I whispered. Because it already broke me. Marcy nodded once. The officers are ready. We stepped out into the storm again. Snow whipped at our coats as 2 patrol cars idled in the parking lot, red and blue lights casting long ribbons of color across the snow. An officer opened the back door for me and helped me secure Mia's blanket around her small shoulders. As we pulled away, the town lights shimmered faintly through the storm Christmas decorations, still glowing in windows, unaware or indifferent to the war unfolding in the shadows. The bank was dark, but several squad cars waited outside. An officer unlocked the doors with a special key provided by the precinct. The lobby lights flickered on one by one, casting long reflections across the polished floor. Marcy stood beside me as the vault door groaned open. The safety deposit room smelled like cold steel and old paper. One wall was lined with numbered boxes. My key trembled between my fingers. Box 1124. My grandfather's handwriting etched into my memory with that number. I slid the key into the lock. It stuck for a moment, almost as if resisting, but then turned with a soft metallic click. The drawer slid out. Inside was a leather-bound journal thicker than the one Evelyn had given me. A stack of legal documents tied with twine, a flash drive, a sealed envelope with my name written in my grandfather's handwriting, and something else, a second key. Marcy leaned closer. What's that? I lifted the envelope first. My fingers shook as I unfolded the letter inside. Riley, if you are reading this, the storm I tried to warn you about has finally broken. You will be tested by those who wear the Dawson name but have none of its honor. Trust the women. Trust your child. Trust no man who uses silence as power. You are stronger than the empire I built, and I pray you will dismantle what must be destroyed. My breath caught. This second key opens the cabin in Cedar Ridge. Your real inheritance is there. My heartbeat thundered. Go before your father finds it, and protect her. Always protect her. My vision blurred. Marcy touched my arm. Riley. What does it say? I folded the letter with trembling hands. It says my grandfather didn't just leave me money. What did he leave you? I looked at the second key shining faintly in the dim vault light. A truth big enough to end everything. And somewhere outside, past the storm, past the town, past the shattered Dawson image, my father would already know I had opened the box. Which meant the next sunrise wouldn't bring peace. It would bring war. The road to Cedar Ridge cut through the mountains like a scar long and twisting, lit only by the faint glow of dawn breaking behind the storm clouds. I drove with one hand on the wheel and the other resting protectively on Mia's leg as she slept, curled in the back seat, her cheeks still pink from the cold, her breath warm and steady. The patrol car ahead of us led the way. Another followed behind. The flashing lights were off now, but their presence shadowed every bend in the road like silent guardians. Marcy sat in the passenger seat beside me, her eyes scanning the rearview mirror every few seconds. She hadn't said much since we left the bank. She didn't need to. The weight in the air between us said enough. Cedar Ridge wasn't on any map most people used. It was old land, private property my grandfather had purchased decades before I was born. A place no one talked about, a place no one visited, a place my father pretended didn't exist. When the turn finally appeared, a narrow dirt cut into the mountain half covered in snow, we slowed to a crawl. The patrol cars maneuvered ahead, tires crunching through ice. As we climbed, the trees grew taller, denser, forming an archway of dark pines heavy with frost. The sun struggled to push through the overcast sky, gold bleeding into gray. At last, the cabin emerged through the trees. It stood on a rise overlooking a frozen lake, Its cedar walls weathered but sturdy chimney still intact, windows shuttered tight. Snow rested thickly on the roof undisturbed. The air here felt different, thicker, quieter, full of something waiting. I parked beside the front steps, my breath clouding as I unbuckled and stepped into the freezing morning air. Mia stirred when I opened her door, rubbing her eyes with tiny fists. "Where are we?" she whispered. "Somewhere safe," I said softly. "Somewhere Grandpa wanted us to find." She didn't question it. She reached out for me and I lifted her into my arms. Her head rested on my shoulder as we walked toward the cabin. The second key, small and brass, worn with age, fit perfectly into the lock. The door creaked open. Warm air didn't greet us. No sign of life stirred inside. The cabin smelled faintly of cedar and dust, the kind of scent that settles when a place waits a very long time to be opened. I stepped into the entryway and flicked the light switch. A soft glow washed over the room. My breath hitched. The cabin was filled with files, not boxes, not piles. Organized shelves floor to ceiling, labeled meticulously in my grandfather's handwriting. A lifetime of records, contracts, ledgers, photographs, hidden histories of the Dawson Empire. And a desk in the center of the room held a single leather-bound journal. My grandfather's. Mia's tiny gasp reached my ears. "Mommy, it's like a library." "It is," I whispered. "A library of the truth." Marcy's boots echoed behind me as she stepped inside. "This is beyond anything I imagined." I approached the desk. My fingers trembled as I opened the journal. The first page held a photo. My mother, younger, smiling, holding a newborn me in a hospital blanket. Tears sprang to my eyes before I could stop them. Beneath it, my grandfather had written, "She deserved protection you were never given. I failed her. I will not fail you." My breath caught in my throat. I turned the page. Entry after entry chronicled years of secrets, my father burying financial frauds, coercing business partners, manipulating family members, forging signatures, threatening anyone who spoke against him. There were notes of board meetings, he doctored documents, he destroyed investments he stole. And then, my name. Over and over. Riley saw something she shouldn't have today. Robert shouted at her. She was only 9. She didn't cry. He punished her for Savannah's mistake again. The pattern is clear. I must intervene. He told her she would never amount to anything. I saw her glance down, then straighten her shoulders. She is built from steel he doesn't deserve to claim. Each sentence carved into me like truth I had never known but always felt. I kept turning pages until I reached the one circled in heavy ink. If anything happens to me, the evidence is in Cedar Ridge. Riley will know what to do. She will save herself, save her daughter, save what remains of this family's soul. A tear slid down my cheek before I realized it. I sat heavily in the old wooden chair, the journal open in my lap. Mia climbed into my arms, curling against me, her small hand resting on the page as if blessing it. Marcy's voice came from behind me, soft, reverent. "Riley, this is enough to take down your father and anyone who protected him." I nodded silently. He built an empire from fear. It ends now. She placed her hand on my shoulder. "We do this carefully, legally, thoroughly. Because once this goes public, the Dawson name will fracture." "Good," I whispered. "Let it break." The front door creaked. My heart jerked. 2 officers stepped inside, stamping snow from their boots. One of them spoke in a steady tone. "Ms. Dawson, we just received word. Your father, he's been arrested." My lungs froze mid-breath. For what I whispered, financial crimes, fraud, coercion, and an attempted kidnapping conspiracy related to tonight's events. The words washed over me like warm air breaking through ice. My father, the man who called my daughter unworthy, the man who built his power from the broken pieces of everyone around him, the man who believed he was untouchable. He wasn't anymore. I didn't cheer. I didn't smile. I simply closed my eyes and held Mia tighter. After the officers left, I stepped outside alone. The storm had passed, leaving the sky washed clean, streaked with pale blue and gold. Light glimmered across the frozen lake like scattered diamonds. For the first time in years, I felt something I barely recognized. Peace. I breathed deeply, letting the cold air burn my lungs, letting myself remember every step that brought me here. The humiliation at Christmas, the truth buried under generations of silence, the fear that nearly crushed me, the hunger for control that drove my father to destroy everything, and the one bright force that kept me fighting my daughter. Footsteps crunched behind me. Marcy. What now? I turned, looking back at the cabin full of truth. Now, I said softly, we rebuild. With what foundation? She asked. With something my family has never used before, I replied. Honesty, accountability, and love. She nodded. The media will come. People will talk. Your family, what's left of it, will blame you. I don't owe them silence, I said. Only Mia. She smiled faintly, spoken like a woman who knows exactly who she is now. I looked out over the frozen lake, the rising sun glinting across the snow. I do, I said. Finally. Later that day, as we drove back down the mountain toward the future waiting for us, Mia leaned forward between the seats. Mommy, yes, love. Are we okay now? I reached for her hand, my eyes softening. We are more than okay, I said. We're free. She smiled, small, tired, but real. And as the sun climbed higher, melting the ice and painting the road ahead in gold, I knew that every step forward from this point wasn't a step away from my past. It was a step into a life I had already earned. A life built from truth. A life built for her. And if you're still here with me listening to this story, I want to ask you something from the bottom of my heart. What moment in your own life made you finally choose yourself? Tell me in the comments. I truly want to hear it. And if this story resonated with you, please like, share, and subscribe so we can keep bringing more voices, more healing, and more truth into the world.